Nowadays, it's relatively hard to come across a concept that feels truly unique in any form of media. From time to time, though, a piece of work comes along that completely changes my outlook on the, now more than ever, saturated game industry. These games are usually trendsetters, and while they give us some much-needed breathing room, they inevitably inspire and oversaturate the markets with titles of a similar style. For examples of this, we need to look no further than Half-Life and Call of Duty. When they were released, they essentially caused the first-person shooter genre to explode in popularity. By showing us how far the genre could be taken in both gameplay and narrative, they paved the way for other studios and indie developers to experiment and innovate. And that's how, ipso facto, the BioShock series came to be. However, sometimes a game is so creative and innovative at its core that no one even tries to create something to rival it. The game that best exemplifies this is Portal. A quick trip to Wikipedia will tell you everything you need to know about the game's story and development, much better than I ever could. Hell, some YouTubers have made exhaustive documentaries about everything related to the Portal series and its connections to Half-Life, since both exist in the same universe. With that said, for this retrospective and beyond, I'll be focusing primarily on the games themselves. As interesting as the behind-the-scenes details may be, I'm much more of an enjoyer of others' videos on that subject than I am of talking about it myself. So, without further ado, hi! Welcome to the channel. I'm your host Rocket, and today I'll be doing a retrospective on one of my favorite games of all time, Portal. Let's dive in. The original Portal, made and published by Valve, first and foremost had a brilliant concept. The game's main character Chell carries a portal gun that allows her to create a pair of portals on any white wall and use them to traverse the game's many test chambers. It was a novel concept when it came out, and I'd argue it still is, as I've yet to play anything else that feels quite like it. While many players found the idea of using portals to go from point A to point B easy to understand, others found it pretty confusing. To mitigate this issue, Valve had the brilliant idea of using the game's trailers and teasers to explain exactly how this core mechanic worked and to give players a taste of what the game had to offer. However, before I talk about that, I think it would be a good idea for us to dig deeper into what the game is all about. The player character Chell wakes up from stasis in a cubicle somewhere within Aperture Science, where the game takes place entirely. Here, a voice greets you, announcing that you're next in line as a test subject for the portal gun. This device allows you to set portals in any wall, as long as it's white. This robotic female voice belongs to the only other character you'll interact with in the game, GLaDOS, one of the most iconic villains of all time. Not only because of the despicable things she does lore-wise, but also thanks to her commentary throughout the adventure. More on her later. As for why the portal gun only works on white walls, it's essentially because it's a prototype. As part of the testing process, they likely set up restrictions on its use to create more interesting puzzles and see how creatively the test subjects could overcome challenges. Though this is mostly speculation on my part, it fits quite well with the setting we're given in both this installment and its sequel. Which brings us to another interesting point. Portal feels, in many ways, like an introduction or training course for its sequel. It introduces its concepts and mechanics perfectly, setting you up for the more complex puzzles in Portal 2. Story-wise, we're introduced to our main character who's mute, and our villain who's rather talkative. But until the very end, we're not explicitly told what's going on. In a final confrontation with GLaDOS, she reveals that she's killed everyone in the facility with neurotoxin, and that you're probably the last one standing. But why Chell? Why are we in Aperture Science? Why is GLaDOS evil? Those questions are set up in this game and explored in greater depth in its sequel. This is why I think of Portal more as a prelude to the events of Portal 2 than as a fully standalone game. This becomes even clearer when you consider the difference in length between the two, Portal being around an hour and a half if you know what you're doing, and Portal 2 lasting around 8 hours. That's not to say Portal doesn't have a conclusion per se, it's just that its ending very clearly sets up its sequel, with Chell being taken back to Aperture after her showdown with GLaDOS. This final showdown, while one of the easiest parts of the game, is extremely funny and cathartic as we scramble to destroy GLaDOS by removing each one of her personality cores and throwing them into the furnace. The lead up to her chamber and her presence throughout are fantastic. The game portrays her as a sort of HAL 9000, making her pretty intimidating, which only enhances her complete disregard for human life. It's no wonder she's considered by many to be one of the best video game villains alongside the likes of Sephiroth, Kefka, and even Ganondorf. Your main goal at the beginning of the game is to complete every test chamber. However, near the end of the second act, GLaDOS reveals that the cake is a lie and sends you to a huge furnace to burn you alive, culminating in you using the portal gun to escape the fiery pit. After that point, your goal becomes defeating GLaDOS and escaping the facility, which you technically accomplish if you didn't fall to the ground in the party escort submission position. To be fair, the game doesn't have much of a plot, as its setting and character interactions are limited, but it didn't need to be more than that. The simplicity of the whole thing makes the game easy to digest within its short playtime. Both characters have very strong personalities, GLaDOS's being externalized through her dialogue, and Chell's being shown through her acts of defiance. This gives the game a fun tone instead of a somber one, despite the circumstances you find yourself in. But going back to the portals themselves, at the very beginning of the game, the gun attached to your arm can only hold objects such as cubes. But as you progress, you collect the two modules that complete the portal gun, the orange and blue portals. The way the portal mechanic works is that you place the orange portal in one spot and the blue one in another. Doing this allows you to essentially teleport yourself from one place to another. For example, by placing one portal on this wall and the other on the wall over there, entering the first portal makes you exit through the second. That's partially where the term "think with portals" comes from. You have to strategically place them to reach your destination, and it only gets harder once the physics-based puzzles come into play.
In layman's terms, speedy thing goes in, speedy thing comes out.
This is the main principle of the momentum-based puzzle solving that Portal presents us with. Take this room as an example. You need to reach a higher platform. You can put a portal up there, but how can you launch yourself with enough speed to reach it? If you look down, there's a drop with white flooring. If you jump down and shoot the other portal below you, you retain the speed you gain from gravity as you pass through, allowing you to clear the necessary distance. I absolutely love this. Introducing the laws of momentum in this way is fundamentally one of the best parts of the game. At some points, you can even abuse this to skip entire levels, as you can see on screen. It's impossible not to praise Valve's talents when they're capable of doing something like this and making it fun. Portal's difficulty gradually increases throughout the main campaign, and that's reflected in the gradual development of your problem-solving skills. Sometimes the solutions to puzzles aren't immediately clear, leaving you to figure out, or in some cases improvise, your way through. This becomes particularly noticeable toward the end of the game, especially after you escape your impending doom. The puzzles have restrictions since you're limited in where you can place portals, but the game often gives you enough leeway to be creative. If you think you're good at Portal, you can try the advanced chambers in the bonus maps menu. These chambers have the same layout as their normal counterparts, but with added difficulty. How difficult are these advanced chambers? They range from fun challenging to absolutely insane. I completed the first one and tried multiple times to clear the second one with the turrets, only to get extremely frustrated and stop. These kinds of things aren't exactly my cup of tea, but they're there for those who appreciate that kind of hair-pulling challenge. Aside from that, you're also given the option to play through the game again in commentary mode. I didn't record gameplay of it, but essentially throughout every map there are speech bubbles you can interact with to hear developer commentary on the game. It's a very interesting feature that warrants a second playthrough, and a great way to learn more about the game and its developers. Since the game takes place within the facilities of Aperture Science, its look is very clinical, technological, and futuristic. Portal is permeated with whites, grays, blacks, and blues. Colors that complement each other perfectly and above all else, capture the vibe of the whole testing and laboratory setting. To complement its visuals in the setting, the music, written by Kelly Bailey, Mike Moraski, and Jonathan Colton, sorry if I mispronounce any of them, is very synth and drone-based, giving us these perfectly sinister and industrial soundscapes with some of the best track names ever. Jonathan Colton in particular stands out for his work on the game's ending theme, sung by none other than GLaDOS herself, Still Alive. I still remember when this game came out. If people weren't quoting "the cake is a lie" all the time, they were singing this song. And yeah, it's great. GLaDOS's personality is felt and heard through her voice actress's performance. That would be the great Ellen McLean. And now, it's time for the verdict. Portal was and still is one of the greatest and most innovative video games ever created. It introduced puzzle elements in a uniquely creative and iconic way to a genre that was growing staler by the minute. It was truly a one-of-a-kind experience, one that I can't say we've had much more of ever since. When all is said and done, I can easily rank this game as an S. It would be a disservice to put it anywhere below that. The way it explored the first-person perspective in a way never seen before and how memorable it remains makes it a hard carry of the FPS genre. Portal is a short experience, but one worth every single second. Play it if you haven't yet. It's dirt cheap, especially during Steam sales or on sites like Loaded. You won't regret it.